Our guest, Megan Morris, she's the author of Stageology, How to Stage to Sell, Home Decorative and Home Staging. She's given seminars to several different organizations regarding staging and is regarded as an expert in her field. Megan, hi, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, and thank you for being here. You know, when we talk about staging, let's say you meet somebody for the first time and you want to impress that person. So you dress a certain way, you talk a certain way, even on a first date. Isn't that staging?
Yes, I love that scenario, and it's so true because the first impression, you only get one chance to make it. And with houses, the way it works, people they see it on the internet, they see a picture, and they decide from that picture if they even want to go see it or not. So that first impression makes all the difference. So everything has to be perfect. The limbs have to be cut back. Everything has to, it just has to be picture perfect, just like your first interview.
Now, when we talk about something like this, I think it's very interesting because picture perfect. But then again, too, how many people know, and the answer to this is probably nobody, but how many people know that if you stage something, if you set it up for somebody to buy, you have to step outside of yourself and think like the person who's going to view that home?
Yes, that's so true. Well, you know how it is when you live in your own home, you get used to the little things that don't work just right. And a lot of times people come around and they go into their garage every day and they really don't even walk up their front entryway and realize that there might be some loose cobblestones or some branches that might have grown in the way of the walkway. So looking at your house from a whole different perspective is the best thing, and having a different set of eyes, because when it's your own house, you tend to overlook those kind of things because they're just not a priority. You get busy with your day-to-day routine, and you just don't get a chance to fix those things. You don't realize how important they really are.
Or the other side of that too. Let's say I'm a throwback from the '60s, and I've got the living room painted orange and something else painted purple. And to me it looks great. But when that person comes in, do you have to go pretty much neutral?
Yes, for resale, and that's the biggest difference, because people want an open palette. They really want a blank canvas to think about how they would do their home, what colors they would paint it. And they relate more with neutral colors. I actually had a client the other day. She told me she didn't want to go back and look at a house that she saw that had a blue room. And I told her, I said, paint is really not a big deal. She's like, I just couldn't get past it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A couple of bucks and you're in good shape here. Now, by the way, what was it about staging that got you, that really caught your attention, that you researched it, you did it, and you help people all over the place with it? What was it about staging that caught you in the first place?
I just think there's such a need for it. And when I came from California, it was pretty mainstream. Almost every house that went on the market, they would stage it first. And when I moved to Florida, that wasn't the case at that time. It's becoming more common now, but I just really saw the need for it in Florida, and so I was really excited to get it going. And I think it just makes it easier for everybody. It raises the whole bar in the industry. And everything shows better. It sells faster. It's more money in the realtor's pocket, more money in the seller's pocket, and the buyers are happy to get a house that they don't have to work too hard on.
Sure. It would be an interesting example if you had two houses next to each other and they were an absolute duplicate and they were going for the same price. One was staged, one wasn't. It's the stage house that'll sell while the other one can sit there because that person doesn't understand the dynamic of what that consumer looks at when they walk into that house.
It's funny. We actually worked with somebody who did something like that with us. It was a home builder that had a lot of the homes that were all pretty much identical. And they gave us, the first one that we had was the worst backyard. It didn't have the best view, but all the houses were the same. And of course, that one sold next. And then we did another house down the street, and that one sold next. So it was really funny how in the order that they sold was not the ones were staged. So, I think it's a perceived value. They feel like it's worth more when it's staged.
Yeah, okay. And staging, when you come down to it, all right, that's like starting out with a blank canvas and beginning to create the picture. And then when you're done, you've got basically what that consumer wants. And I would imagine for the amount of time that you've been in the business, those questions that somebody has about a house, were probably boiled down to 7 or 8 questions at the most, and everybody asks usually the same questions. And if you can answer those questions and there's commonality of definition in your answers, then you know exactly what somebody wants before they walk into that house.
That's right. That's right.
Now, by the way, when staging a house, okay, how is it expensive? How long does it take? What are you dealing with staging?
No, it's not very expensive. As a matter of fact, it's less than your price reduction. So a lot of people, when they're deciding, if their house has been on the market for 30, 60 days, they decide to, take it down. I've heard people. I talked to somebody today. He said he was going to reduce it $10,000, and I said, well, why don't we try staging it first? In their example, the house, our pricing structure is a couple $100 per room to stage to bring furniture in. Plus there's moving fees associated with that. Redesign is about $125 an hour, which I think is pretty much an industry average. So that if we're just going to rearrange furniture, you could probably do that for under a couple $100, and that's not a big deal. When you're actually bringing furniture in for an empty house, of course, that might cost a little bit more, but it's still going to be less than his price reduction, which would have been $10,000. And then hope that it'll sell really quickly, which a lot of times they do. The statistics really show they do sell a lot faster.
Now, when you're getting a home to sell, obviously you've seen a lot of dimensions of staging, from small to large. Where was the big one for you, the most drastic and the most, let's call it the positive change in a home that caused that home to sell?
I would say there was a house we did about a year ago that had been on the market for a couple of years. And the reason we think it didn't sell before was because part of the house was remodeled, and it was done in a couple of the rooms were very contemporary, and the rest of the house was traditional. And so people would walk in and they couldn't feel the flow. They couldn't connect with it. They didn't know what to do with it. They're like, am I going to have to remodel the rest of the house contemporary, or am I going to have to redo those 2 rooms that are contemporary, make them traditional? What do I do? When we brought the furniture in, we brought in furniture that was very transitional, that went with both looks. And they actually, within a week, had 2 people in a bidding war over it. And the owner was very excited, and they thanked us. They couldn't believe the difference. So I think that in some cases where there's a house where there's something about it that people cannot relate to, that's to me the most rewarding, because you see that what a difference it is when you stage it. You can see all the difference. People come in and, oh, now I know what to do. Now I get it. So that's a lot of fun. That's really a drastic change.
See, in all my years of either looking at a house or buying a house or just whatever the case may be, for some reason when I walk into a house, I go immediately to the kitchen. Why? I have no idea, but that's that place that seems like that's kind of home, that's representative of family and everything else. Are there certain areas that you really have to take a look at in a home to make sure that you've got them spot on before somebody should look at it?
Well, you're right on track there. It's funny how things have changed over the years. Many years ago, it used to be the living room. Everybody congregated to the living room, and that's where they spent. People, when they remodeled their house, they put their money in the living room. Now it's a kitchen. It doesn't matter if there's even furniture. There's just a kitchen counters. People tend to congregate around the kitchen when people are cooking and everybody's talking, and they all like to do it together. So the kitchen is definitely, I think, the most important room to concentrate on. And that's, if you're going to remodel, that's one place that you should definitely consider. And that's also the area, that you want to make sure it always looks decluttered and clean, and because people really relate to the kitchens, like you just said.
Okay, now, one of the things that people look at is that curb appeal. What do you do to enhance that?
Well, curb appeal, I was going to say the kitchen is the most important when that's the most important when you get in the house. Curb appeal that is by far the most important overall, because that's going to get them to the house to begin with. And if you can't get them to the house, you can't get them in it. And a lot of times a bag of mulch goes along, a couple bags of mulch go a long way. We evaluate a curb appeal of a house. That's one of the things I look for. I look at the house numbers. That might be an easy fix. If they look all rusted and like they're worn out, that's an easy fix. A new doormat, possibly painting the fixtures if they're starting to chip or fade. And just the walkway, making sure the walkway is easy to walk through. You want to make sure it doesn't have overgrowth of plants or weeds or any branches sticking out. You don't want, or mold too. You want to make sure if it needs to be power washed, that's power washed. The front should look is a reflection of the whole house, and that's their first impression.
Now, by the way, okay, so they get into the house, they go into the different areas. What do you do to dress that house? You know, there's a lot of houses that still have furniture in them, and let's say my taste in furniture may be completely different than your taste in furniture. When you're dealing with staging, what do you do with those things?
Well, that's why we try to neutralize it as much as possible. If people have a collection, whatever it might be, they might have the little collectibles. We try to get the people to pack up their collectibles because we just want to use the basic furniture that they have there. And it's for some people it seems like it's sparse, but that's the best way to do it. You want the house to relate to more people, and you want to show off the architectural elements, and you don't want them to be looking at the furniture and the collectibles and all the little knickknacks around the house or the baby pictures. You know, you want them to look at the house itself, the architecture. You want them to see wide open floor plans. The biggest thing we do is to depersonalize, and then that does help people relate to the decor no matter what it is.
And very important in the Stageology, how to stage to sell, page 27. You see, I've memorized the whole thing now. I think once.
Oh my goodness!
I think three words really bring it all home, and three words are "I belong here." That is the real key of allowing somebody to take a look at it. It's that recognition of there's something there. It reflects them. They see them. The house should become a mirror for that person looking at it that has the potential of buying it.
Exactly. So that's what we're trying to show, is that we try to remind them of what it used to be like. You know, a lot of times it's you remember cooking in the kitchen, you remember playing in the backyard, you remember all. So the last thing you want to do is have a cluttered kitchen or a cluttered backyard. You want people to imagine all these wonderful things they're going to do at this house, and you're really providing those. You're trying to reflect back to their memories and have them really connect to the house.
You know, a great example of that. There was somebody who had a example about a young couple that wanted to buy their first home, and they got a hold of the real estate person, and they were driving the car. And the real estate person asked the young woman, what are you looking for? And she started talking about her house and when she was a kid. And there was a flowering cherry tree that was in the front yard. So they drive up to this new home, and what's in the front yard? A flowering cherry tree. In every room that those kids walked into, the salesperson pointed to that cherry tree. When you get up in the morning and you have your breakfast, you can see the cherry tree. Every room they did the same thing with that faced the cherry tree. So in essence, what the kids bought was a $500,000 flowering cherry tree, and they threw a house in with it.
And that's what happens sometimes. We don't know what it is that people are going to connect with the house, but that's just it. That when they fall in love with something, sometimes the checklist kind of goes away. You go in looking at houses and you think, okay, I want this, 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 and this. But then if there's something there that just they relate to, and it feels warm and comfortable. They just feel like, like you said, you belong there. They just feel like they have that connection.
Yeah, it's that I want it, and that's the end of it. That's really what it takes, and it is that recognition. And I wonder how many salespeople out there really realize that's the true value, that stimulating factor that causes somebody to make that buying decision.
Right.
Okay, now we're starting to run out of time. Now let me ask you this. Is there a website we can find you at?
Yes, it's www.professionalstaging.com.
Okay, www.professionalstaging.com. And by the way, if somebody misses it, we have it up on our website, so you're good to go there. And by the way, thank you so much, Megan. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Such as Mexico.